Welcome to the revolution in the airwaves. It's The Cure with Scotty and Sully, where we don't just talk about the medical industry, we transform it. This is The Cure with Scotty and Sully, where we don't just cover excellence, we create it.
Hey, welcome to The Cure with Scotty and Sully. Scotty, I miss you. It's been several weeks. I think we made a commitment that after summer's over, we're really going to start killing it. I mean, we're going to have a show like 3 a week, right? I think this is our third. So it's
the first of the year.
Our inaugural. Well, I know we prep for weeks for these things, so it's great seeing you again. Hey, we got a special guest today. He is genuinely a dear friend of mine, but it's not why we're having him on the show. Although I do, anytime I get a chance to spend 45 minutes with this guy, I always find that he leaves me better and happier. That's a very real thing. And what I love about Mike Altshuler, he's a powerhouse in sales. You know, years ago, I went to a National Speakers Association convention. That's where dudes like me hang out, where we go to learn things, sort of like the speaker's version of Haida. I saw a guy in a booth, and he was peddling this little product, and it was a deck of cards that he was selling to authors. Well, he'll summarize your book in a deck of cards. And of course, I signed up, and he customized my book into a deck of cards. And he was one of the coolest, most engaging, happy humans I had ever met. And for years, he's been working with the bigwigs, the Fortune 500s, thousands of not only salespeople, but sales leaders. I know personally, I have one client where he's now become the life coach of the CEO of this client. The reason is because once you're done with him, you're like, holy crap, why am I bitching about anything? Because this guy's mind is right. So welcome to the show, Mr. Michael Altshuler.
Wow, are those some incredible shoes to fill? First of all, thank you. I consider you a dear friend as well, Sully. God, it's great to be. I'm honored. And anytime I get to speak to salespeople, listen, I got sales running through my veins since I was 16 years old. So it's something that it's near and dear to my heart, as well as being the best human being I can be. As you know, by other things that I do in my life, I believe in the whole person. What you do when you leave work, are you a great father, mother, sister, brother? Are you a great human being? Do you give back? Do you make a difference in the world, leaving it better than you found it? And also in sales. As you know, my sales background, I was in the copier business. Super competitive, and it's all like medical equipment. I mean, listen, we're out there, a lot of competition, and we're out there. I was out there still to this day. Second place sucks, doesn't pay very well. So the question is, as a coach now, not a speaker, but as a coach, I say, what does it take to win more? To win have a higher win rate. And we went against Xerox. So Xerox was Goliath. And some of you out there that are listening to this right now, you may be that David. Who was the David? I was a little guy competing against the giant. And if you're the giant, this will be valuable to you because we can tell you how we kicked your butt if we were the small guy. Okay, so it works both ways, but it's all about how did I, and now how do I coach on helping people have a higher win rate, hold your margins, and listen, whatever challenge you have, getting through the gatekeeper, this is what it's all about. I'm going to give you insights now, inspiration, things are going to be game-changing and life-changing to make your life and your business better.
Awesome. I love it. Well, and even before we went on air, we were talking a little bit about what medical distribution and manufacturers, anybody who's calling on hospitals, doctors' offices, long-term care facilities, they all face the same thing. Certainly in acute care, you have these really long sales cycles. You wonder if what I did today, that conversation I had, is it even advancing me any further to the sale? And that becomes really tedious. Or maybe, Scotty, you brought it up. It's pre-COVID, you were able to pop into a facility, and even if you didn't have your credentials, you would jaywalk and you'd find some people to talk to, right? And certainly gatekeepers and all of these things. And you get a chance, Michael, to speak to several industries. Certainly you've worked with several medical companies as well. What do you think separates those who, despite all of these challenges, they don't get bummed out? They still make a lot of calls. They still work on their art and their presentation and their pitch. They're just better than everybody else. Like, what do you think separates them?
Yeah, I think a few things separate them. If you were saying what one word separates them, it's their why. The greater the why, the greater the try. And at the end of the day, we built these cards that call your comfort zone. You don't get comfortable. And it's in medical terms, since we're talking medical, it's called your homeostasis. Your body always wants to go back to what's normal, what's comfortable. And it's never comfortable driving yourself all the time past your comfort zone. In essence, into your discomfort zone. Doing more when you work out. that one extra rep, that one extra call when you're out on the road, when you worked hard all day, 8 hours. I want to make that one extra call. But what separates the great ones, we're all exposed to the same great training, the same great training methodology for great selling. Okay? We all have the roadmap. Why do 80% not follow that roadmap consistently? And why do the top 20%, going by Toretta's rule, do it? What separates that, to answer that question, is the why. The greater the why, the greater the try, it pushes people past their comfort zone. You attach pain. If I don't do this, man, my life will be miserable. The greater the pain, certainly the greater the gain. That's why they say people change when they hit what? Rock bottom. So if you can make that pain real and significant in your life to say, if I don't make these extra calls, if I don't learn these new skills, if I don't practice, drill, and rehearse what I need to practice, drill, and rehearse, or model and get better, then my life will be horrific. I'll be a loser. I'll be mediocre. And the more devastatingly painful that association is, the more it's going to be a driving and a compelling force to get you to do the things that you don't feel like doing. And that's what the successful people do. The other side of that, it's a Freudian theory. We do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. We all know how much more money we make if we make the extra calls and if we learn more skills so we're better on those calls. Why don't we do it? It's because we get comfortable. And it's not fun to always practice, drill, rehearse, and spend 12 hours a day doing this stuff. I know, I did it. I went from nothing to making millions and then losing, the entrepreneurial journey. But I'm telling you, to be great and consistently push yourself beyond your comfort zone, you have to have a big enough why, and that will push you. And the great ones are comfortable being uncomfortable. That should be you. Make that your business.
So, Michael, obviously, you just talked about going through pain, and to be able to build a company from a small company to be able to sell it to a Fortune 100 company, there had to be two things. One, some very uncomfortable times, but also some pain along the way. Can you talk a little bit about that or some of those moments that made a big difference for you?
Yes, I will. And great question, Scott. I think the big challenge that you have when you're building a company or you're building your pipeline, I think the challenge we all have is there's roadblocks and obstacles, external and in our own head, things that hold us back. When you're in business, there's multiple things that you have to get working, whether it's administration, processes, systems. You're working 12 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. So I think the challenges that we all face is, how do we stay committed and consistent to doing what we don't feel like doing, pushing ourselves again beyond our comfort zone. And the roadblocks, you have setbacks. A famous speaker, Willie Jolly, said, a setback is a setup for a comeback. So the question is, we're always going to have challenges. That's never, ever going to go away in your life. You know, everyone listening to this right now is dealing with a friend or a family member or themselves with a financial issue, a health issue, a relationship issue. None of us are void of that, and that's for the rest of our lives. So the question isn't how do we get over just that, it's how do we thrive? How do we learn and grow and get better? And I think the commitment and the dedication, that's going to take us to the next level where we're consistent, that we understand our why is greater than our why not, and we just keep going. But yeah, I made a lot of sacrifices, and it's about paying the price of success to enjoy the price of success. They both go hand in hand.
You got to take risks too, right? And I think one of the fun things, a story that you told me years ago, you went outside your comfort zone a little bit with a very famous program, the American Gladiators. And Scotty, I don't know if you remember this a few years ago when our boy Ian Farty, when he was the main man at HIDA, he's the event planner of the century in healthcare. And this guy thinks wacky, right? And he always tries to put on a big event. And he doesn't want to treat it like everybody else. He says, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. Because I was helping him out as an MC at these events. He said, we're going to do dodgeball. And so we set up in a big convention hall, a live, I guess dodgeball's a real thing, with the glass. And we were going to pick some folks from manufacturers and distributors, and they were going to battle the American Gladiators. And it was hilarious because, you know, you got these women coming out with arms and big thighs. And it was funny because it was soon after that, Mike, you told me that you took a big chance in your life by also going against the American Gladiators. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing it up, Ryan. So listen, it was after 6 o'clock at night. I'm at my office working late as I was growing my business, and my general manager, David Greenspun, comes in. We just had one of those after 6 o'clock conversations about what are your dreams as a kid? What are your aspirations? What's your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal? I said, man, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to be a pro football player, baseball. I didn't care which, but I just wanted to play it. I love competition. I love to win. I love when the odds are against me and then showing that I got what it takes to win. he came in a week later, David, with a VHS cassette and said, Mike, there's a new show on TV. That's how old I am. It was a new show at the time. And he said, you could live a respun dream. You could be in Hollywood and at Universal Studios and be under the bright lights and 6 million viewers, #1 syndicated show, and you could compete against these gladiators. And we went back in my service department with that all-in-one TV and VHS recorder. He plugged it in there. He says, look at these gladiators. Look at these contestants. And the gladiators are killing these contestants. And he said, that could be you. I'm thinking, why is he excited about that? Did he not like his raise? Does he want my job? Like, why would he be excited about me getting my butt kicked in front of 6 million people? So anyway, I remember, and tell me as you're listening to this, if this resonates with you. Did you ever have a dream, a goal, an aspiration so big that it excited you, but also scared the heck out of you? And I think we all have. And in that moment, I saw this and I said, I could be competing at the highest level on TV in Hollywood. And I got so exhilarated and excited. And then I got scared, really scared. Like this, I could actually be there and do this. And I had doubt and I had concern, I had fear. And I'm asking you right now, listening to this, I mean, has that ever been you where you put something on the back burner because you were scared to death? That's how I felt. And I said no to reliving my dream. And a year later, he said, season #2 is here. My office was in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And he said, the tryouts are in New York at the Coliseum. And I tried out and I was one of 2 men out of 5,000 in New York to make it. And nationwide, there was 20 out of 10,000. I was one of the 20. And I got to live my dream. And I'm glad I lived to tell the story. But really, it's always what would become during our journey more than I was actually on the show. I mean, that was exciting. It's great. It's a Netflix special now. And it's great and I made that. And it's great to talk about that. It's fun. But really what I became in overcoming fear and living my dream, saying I never left that on the table. I did it. I think that we all face that in life. And I think we really need to overcome the fear, the adversity, the uncertainty, and just go for it. And then there's tenaciousness that becomes part of you during that journey. There's persistence, there's resilience, there's mental toughness. And you use that for every other part of your life because you compete right now. You compete, you have tough competitors, you want to win.
How'd you do?
Hey, Scott, you have a question for me?
Yeah, I was going to ask what Sully said. How'd you do?
No, that's why I asked you. I was hoping it would be a different question than what Sully asked. Oh my gosh! Actually,
look at the stash.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did a Super Mario standing commercial back then.
Look at the pipes.
Actually,
look at the pipes on this guy. How many watches did you sell in Jersey? What?
But by the way, the #1 question I get is, how did I do? And I ask audiences, raise your hand if you remember the show. They do. I said, how many remember seeing me compete? No one raises their hand. I said, in that case, I won the national championship. They don't know. But truth of the matter is, I made it to the semifinals. I lost to the national champion, who was a rodeo cowboy who became a friend, Craig Brenham. And I don't have to say this, but I'm against the #1 guy in 2 seasons, Craig. And the beauty of that is he was the best. The negative part of this is they seed the best against the worst. So I was the last seed, he was the first seed, and he ended up winning the whole thing. But it was great, great experience. And like I said, you learn about yourself. And when you take these giant steps into uncertainty, that's where transformation takes place.
Yeah. I like what you said there about the whole overcoming the fear. One of the things that we see in healthcare sales, and it's like everything else, 80-20. I'll specifically talk about lab or physician office lab. Like there's about 20% of distribution reps that are comfortable that'll walk in and go sell lab products. And the other 80 is not that they don't want to go do it, but I don't know if it's fear or what. Now I will say after COVID, people had to talk about diagnostics with their accounts. So a lot more are selling it today. But I think folks get fearful to go in there. And it's like, you don't have to be fearful. You have manufacturers that make these products that'll help you. Talk a little bit. And some of these things, Michael, take months and years to close the business. How do they stay motivated and focused and overcome that fear to go in and just ask a couple of questions to get a conversation started?
Yeah, that's a great question. And fear is the great debilitator. So I get it. There's a few quotes around that I'm going to share with everyone. One is from the book Quantum Leap Thinking by James Mapes. And it says, fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. It becomes oftentimes bigger in our head than it is in reality. And how many times, everyone listening to this, how many times you've been fearful of something, then you did it, and the fear that you had was not nearly as significant. The fear that you had was greater than actually how easy it was. You didn't,
Yeah, it's like
you
going to
would've
get a
never
root
had that
canal.
fear. Oh yeah. Well, thanks. I have to get one. But no, the truth of the matter is we tend to amplify and exaggerate the fear in our head. And then when we
Right.
actually do it, it's not nearly as bad. So we went through all that anguish and then ended up worse off as a result of that because it affects our attitude, our energy, and what we do. But the quote, false evidence appearing real, what James Mapes talks about is you don't see fear dancing across the street. There's only two types of real fear that exist, fight or flight for our existence. Everything else is conjured up in our head. And it's what we attach
That's an
fear
interesting
to.
concept.
It's true. Now, Zig Ziglar, my mentor, said this about fear. Fear means two things. Again, an acronym. It says, forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. So forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And if you're ever fearful, one of the things, listen, no one likes to speak in front of large crowds. Number one, fear. I was scared the first time I did it. But if you prepare, know that no one is great. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Prepare, practice, drill, rehearse, go in and just do it and cut your
Yep.
teeth and keep doing it. That's the way you overcome it. Just, Mel Robbins in her book, go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just go. Don't overthink it. Take action. Underthink, overdo. Do more than you think, and you'll get and say, how can I get better at this? And that's all about practicing and modeling and shadowing the top 20%.
My business partner, we both speak a lot at different national sales meetings and different things like that. He hates speaking in public, but he's so natural at it and so good at it. He could be a stand-up comedian. He's very funny. And I'll never forget, he was speaking at, I think it was Henry Schein's national sales meeting, and there were 2,000 or 3,000 people in the auditorium, and they had the big screen with him on them. And he gets up, and he's a big dude, like not John Candy big, but he's big. And John gets up and he goes, there are two things that our people fear the most: dying in public speaking. He's like, and I'm so nervous, and this is the biggest crowd I've ever spoken, but I'm so glad that you guys put a fat guy on the camera to help set me at ease. Broke the whole place down. And then he was fine from there. But I bring him up about that. His comment about speaking is nobody remembers necessarily what you say a lot of times. It's how you made them feel. And it's so true, have some passion.
Yeah, that's Maya Angelou's quote. One of my favorite quotes is, people won't remember what you said. People won't remember what you did, but people will always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So the question is, and also, what are all the ways, as you kind of peel back the onion on this, Scott, what are all the ways, if you're fearful of going into an office or making that call, going into talking about lab, whatever you're fearful of, get in touch with that and say, you know what? First of all, get your butterflies in alignment so they serve you, as opposed to work against you. Even professional athletes and those that are on Broadway. Some people on Broadway that are professional actors and performers, they throw up before they go out. It's not the absence of fear that is important. It's going with courage in spite of fear. And what will help you do that is to understand that this is my only path forward to improving and to achieving my goals. And that will help you, if you get in touch with your why, that's going to cause you to do the uncomfortable things, get your butterflies in alignment, and then go and do it in spite of the fear. But we all have fear is a natural thing if you're uncomfortable. The reason you're uncomfortable speaking in front of large groups is because what happens if you're embarrassed? What happens? Right. So what do you do to not be embarrassed? You prepare. And then, if you prepare it properly, it doesn't matter how they react. You did the best you could do. And we've all, I've had situations that were uncomfortable, but you know what? If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
For sure. Sully won't know anything about this, but I've been in a lot of member guests and made it to the shootout. And I'm always a nervous wreck, and we end up out the first hole because I'm just so nervous, and my partner gets furious with me. And this past year, for the first time, I'm like, you know what? Screw that. I'm just going to have fun with it. And I just clowned around and had fun. And we got all the way to the last hole of the shootout. And we'd never done that before because of my nerves. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's just lining up the butterflies and use them for you. I love that analogy.
Or drink Fireball.
Yeah, and also and I'll tell you what you did, Scott, also. It took me a while to learn this. You do what works for you. Some people may think of this. Some people may listen to music. You watch people before performing in the Olympics. They all have their routine. Some listen to music. Some are doing things with their hands. And some are dancing. Whatever works for you, do it. But the most important thing is find your routine, your pre-workout or pre-game time routine, and then you have to go and do it. And again, you don't have to be great to start. If you watch the first Oprah show, it was horrific. It's a joke. You would say she'll never make it. Everyone sucked when they started,
Yeah.
but you just got to, you work through it and get better.
Yeah. Well, I know we say this all the time. Why not make the extra call? What's the downside? Why not try to meet that new decision maker? And certainly fear it's the motivator behind not doing it. However, I also think something I try to keep in my head and in my own salespeople's head is the term, why not now? And it goes back to procrastination. So fear is causing it, but what it turns into procrastination. So yes, I may agree that I'm going to try that new thing. I'm going to get better at this, but they put it off. And some of the most successful people in business have a real urgency about them. I don't know many people who have killed it in business or in sales or in anything who don't have a healthy sense of urgency. And so I would say identify what are those fearful things that are preventing you from being amazing, right? So it starts with an exercise of what do I want to be, which goes back to your point, Michael, of why, right? What's motivating me?
Yeah.
But let's put it into bite-sized things, all right? Here it is. It's the first quarter is going to be over here soon in sales. Maybe I had just an okay first quarter, but my objective now is to have an amazing second quarter. How do I do it? Let me diagnose it. Well, I'd like to speak to 25% more people than I did in Q1. I want 25% more meetings. So you have to set your objective. Otherwise, yeah, I'm afraid, I'm fearful of all this stuff. But if you don't have a finish line, then it's easy just to say I'm afraid, right? So you got to set your objectives. And then rather than do it tomorrow, just do stuff like right now, because urgency is what will make you a champion. Don't put it off, right? You're going to shit your pants every now and then, but it doesn't matter. I also know this. Some of the
I think
greatest.
that's after all the fireball.
Well, the fireball will certainly take the edge off. But hey, as in the case of when I was in the Trump National member guest, Michael, I'm not sure I told you this story, but Bedminster, New Jersey, you're up where you're from. And like Scott,
Yeah.
I made the horse race, and I'm on the second to last hole to go on to the final hole. And there's Trump and Melania in a golf cart. And I have to do a chip off to go to this final hole. I didn't see Trump, and he comes down off of his golf cart. I'm over my ball about to hit it, and he says, stop. And I look up, and there's Mr. Trump. He's not president at the time. And I said, how can I help you, Mr. Trump? And he just had good luck on that shot. And he just stood right over me. Of course, I shit my pants, right? But I took my practice swings, and I'm like, this is the greatest moment of my life. Now, I ended up chili dipping it. For you non-golfers, that means my shot went about 4 feet. And the whole audience, it was like being on an episode of whatever Trump show, right? It was like he was going to say, you're fired. And then the next guy gets up behind me. He does the exact same thing. Mr. Trump said, what's your name? He told him the name. He chili dips it, but it goes about 6 feet. So he wins and he goes on. And Mr. Trump is running off. They're all going off to the tee box of the next hole. And I yelled at Mr. Trump. And I said, Mr. Trump, can you please come back here? And he came back here. I said, I can't let this be the last shot I ever took at your golf course. Would you allow me to hit this again? And I pulled a ball in my pocket and I hit it. It went on the green. And I said, I feel much better, Mr. Trump. And he looked at me and he smiled. He said, I like that attitude. Now, what's the point of the story? The point of the story was, yes, I was absolutely fearful. And guess what? I blew it. There are going to be times where you're scared and you win and you absolutely blow it. But I also say that I went on for the next 18 years to have one hell of a fun bar story. The value of me choking far outweighed me getting to the next hole and losing, right? Meaning, who cares, right? It's the hardest thing for me to teach even my own salespeople. My sales reps on just before we did this podcast. And I'm trying to push them, guys, stay on the call. Ask one more question, right? Challenge them. What's the downside? And I know we say it all the time. What's the downside? Who cares? You're nowhere at this point anyway. And it's really hard to convince people to do that, right? Why is it so hard? I'll ask both of you, right? Why is it so hard? I know fear. We've identified fear, but why fear and how do I fix it? We got the diagnosis
The
down.
core of the problem.
How do we fix it?
Yeah.
What's the medicine to it?
I think it's a lot of what Michael's just said. And I want Michael to jump in here is admit that you have the fear, own it.
Yeah. Fear,
and then get it in line.
Fear is normal. Yeah. Fear is normal. Procrastination is normal when you have fear. I mean, I have certain things that are uncomfortable. I don't feel like doing. I do other things. So the highest and best use of your time to make sure, to Brian's point, if you have a target, once you have a goal, then you have what are your daily activities, number of calls you need to make, et cetera. And I know Brian's a stickler for that with his sales team. And we all should be sticklers. I knew exactly how many appointments I needed to set every day in the copier business, how many demonstrations I needed to set, what my closing ratio is, how do I improve that? And listen, I've done things that I was really petrified. I played golf with my baseball hero, Willie Mays. You don't think I was nervous playing golf in the same golf cart with Willie Mays? And I played him for money, and I still owe him money, but I was petrified. But it was a great, if you don't approach these things and say, yeah, I want to do it, you have a life that's mediocre. And who wants to do that? And
Right.
like I said, it's what you become in that process. And fear, again, is something that can be debilitating. I do want to say this. This is one of the top takeaways that I coach on in my life that I want to share with your audience. How do you have more good days, productive days, successful days? Well, we all want that. Okay. Here's the takeaway. If you watch the NBA or the NFL, this is the highest level of performance, consistent performance, highest pay, best number of coaches, everything is there at the highest level. Here's what they do, and we can do the same thing. In the NBA, they have how many quarters? 4. So I want everyone listening to this, from this moment on, break your day into 4 quarters, okay? You have early morning, early afternoon, late afternoon. And after each quarter, you have 2 main goals. One, am I doing all the things on my list? That check out how many calls I need to make. Am I doing everything on my list? And how's my attitude, my energy, my focus? So how am I doing my mindset? How's that? My energy, my focus, my motivation. And then how's my activity level? Highest and best use of my time. And am I hitting the numbers? And every quarter, this is it. You've watched NBA games. A lot of them are won in the last minute, last 2 minutes. You see the fluctuation. First quarter, one team's up. You will have days that the first quarter of your day sucks, but you're able to make what? An adjustment.
Yeah.
And when you do that after each quarter, you assess and you adjust. Assess and adjust. Assess how's my attitude, my energy, my mindset, my enthusiasm, and how am I doing with checking the calls off the list, doing everything I should do. And when you do that quarter, what will happen, you assess and adjust, you'll have maybe some bad quarters, but you'll finish the day with a win because you made the adjustments. And if you look at what they do in the NFL, they make adjustments every time they come off the field. What do they have in their hand? They have a tablet, and they're looking so they can make adjustments the next time they get on the field. They make adjustments. And also when we're on a call, we say in sales, all of us, what can I have done better on that call? Or what did I do great on that call that I can replicate on the next call? And that's the type of assessments. If they're doing it at that level, I think we should do it too. And we'll have more good days, successful days, if we break it into 4 quarters rather than just wait until the end of the day and said, today sucked. We all have bad days, but if you break it down, you'll be able to make those adjustments.
Yeah. Why is it so hard for people to be happy? Salespeople, right? And I'll ask both of you this is, do you know anybody who ever says, I'm going to be happy when I win the President's Club, or I'm going to be happy if I'm in the top 5, or I'll be happy if I win that big healthcare account. And I'm just seeing this with a lot of people is they're seeking happiness, but the problem is they're never really happy, right? It's like this never ending chase. So even what you're describing here, Michael, is I had a good morning. First quarter went great. Didn't have a great second quarter. All right. Later in the afternoon, I'm going to have a really good. But I would say as you're doing this too, at some point, you actually have to be good with yourself, right? You got to be happy. And what I'm trying to get at here is I don't think enough people tie their happiness to the process. They tie their happiness to the result, right? And some of the greatest champions in sports and in business, let's take a Michael Jordan. Sure, he certainly loved winning championships, but more importantly, he loved the game, right? And so in sales and in our business, what does it mean for us? Well, enjoy the calls, enjoy the conversations, enjoy the dealer rep you meet, enjoy the time you're spending with your manufacturer rep. Don't worry about the results. Certainly have that in front of you. You got a finish line, but you got to recognize your wins in real time. Do not wait to be happy, right? Certainly we want to keep going, but I just see too many unhappy people. And I think we try to fix so much of these little tactical things, but ultimately give yourself, if you had a damn good first quarter salesperson, you're listening right now, give yourself a freaking pat on the back and enjoy today. Enjoy this week, right? And I want to see more people get there.
I think that's great. And I'm going to take that even deeper. The first sense in happiness, and the next level of happiness is joy, internal joy, is to be intentional and aware and grateful. That I'm grateful that I have this opportunity. I'm grateful to live in this country. We don't take time out as human beings, present company included, to be grateful for the blessings that we have if you're here. Do you know, I read this statistic the other day? I was shocked. Do you know the odds of just being born? I'm not talking with a man and a woman just getting pregnant. I'm just existing in the universe. 1 in 400 trillion that God put you here. It's a miracle that you're here. We never think of that it's a miracle. We think of, oh, this sucks that this happened, or this is terrible. It's a miracle that you're even here. We aren't grateful. And if you look at other countries, And if you look at whether it's Haiti or places in Africa, if you look at what we have, we are so rich. I just got off the phone with someone who's an immigrant from Cuba and sold this company. We're so blessed to live in a country where we have so many opportunities. And you're in an opportunity now with medical equipment sales and so many opportunities in front of us. We can choose to have a pity party or a profit party. And the truth of the matter is, this takes awareness and intentionality to be happy. We all have stuff happen to us. That's never going to end, but it's a choice. So we have self-talk. We have 50 to 70,000 thoughts go through our head every day. 60% are negative. You know, you're in sales. I mean, for you, you're going to get a lot more no's than yeses. Okay. Now, is that positive? Well, it could be. And I'll tell you why. If you add up your commission at the end of a month and you divide it by the number of calls you made, that means every call had an actual value. It actually, so if I make another call, each call is worth $8, $10. I want to make more calls. I'm making more money. We know that the sales aren't going to come without the call. It's part of the process. There's something else I want to tell you. So awareness, intentionality, gratitude. Know that every call you make, although not necessarily the most fun thing in the world, know that it has a dollar value. Divide it by the money you made, how many calls you make, that's a dollar value. No one can argue with that. The third thing, which I think we all need to recognize, is when you're going through your day, and again, you'll take this from pro sports, celebrate your victories. Not necessarily a sale. A sale is great. In the NFL, do they celebrate a first down? Yes. Do they celebrate a sack? Yes. They celebrate that. You're in a business, we're all in a business in sales where there's more no's and more rejection than there's yeses. You got to charge your own battery.
Yeah.
You don't want to run on low all the time. And the way you charge your battery is by when something good, when I do something, I kid you not, I literally pat myself on the shoulder. I do that. Yeah, I'm the only one here, so no one can see me doing that because it's pretty weird. But I do that when I push myself to do something I didn't feel like doing. To your point, Brian, it's the process that I know will create the performance. When I push myself to do something that I didn't feel like doing, which is what's going to drive success in your world and in mine, I literally congratulate, no one's here to congratulate me and say, well done, Mike. But that's what I do. And you know what? It charges me up. When they score a touchdown in the NFL, is there one person celebrating in the end zone or the whole team? Why do they do that? They do that because it amplifies the energy. It charges everyone's battery. What happens? So they can perform better. So as their battery gets drained, which it will, and it does, because you see momentum shifts, and sales is about momentum, right? When good things happen, when you're selling sale after sale, you're feeling great. You give me the toughest client, toughest prospect. I'm great. When things are going bad, how do you reverse that? And that's why when you do certain things, when you fight through certain battles in your head, give yourself the affirmation and congratulations that you did something that's going to make you better. And I'm telling you, that's what it's going to take to charge your battery throughout the day. Just keep doing better and celebrate. I'm not talking running victory laps. I'm talking take a minute or 2 minutes out and say, yeah, I did something I didn't feel like doing. This is progress.
Yeah. Hey, listen, as a coach, because you're dealing with a lot of business people and salespeople, ever meet people who seem to love obsessing over their own problems?
Yeah, it's the Plum Society. Poor little old me.
What's the problem with that sales rep, right? Who says, why am I not hitting my numbers? Why are they cutting my territory back? Why am I not more successful? Why is everything so hard? What advice would you give to that person about why that mindset isn't helping them?
Yeah, well, Zig Ziglar used to say, if that's it, you need a checkup for your neck up, you're hardening of the attitude. And the truth of the matter is, you can't fix something if you're not aware of it. You can't manage what you don't measure. So the first thing, I wear a Whoop watch because I measure everything. I can't get better unless I know what my numbers are, right? So if you're out there and you're a sales rep and you're negative, that negativity comes from what? Your thoughts. Your thoughts are coming from the situation right now or your beliefs. So you really have to peel back the onion and say, you can get as deep or not as deep as you want and say, okay, there's nothing of great value that I'm going to get from being negative. Negativity breeds negativity. Success begets success. Failure begets failure. So when you get, the first step with anything is be aware, intentional of your self-talk. Throughout the day, if you're not aware of what's going on in your head, that will take you in the direction that's not good if it's negative.
All right. I'm going to challenge you here, right? Because everything that the three of us are discussing today is very inward, which certainly we have to think this way. But what I have found is the greatest people, let's go back to the happiness. The greatest happy humans, often happy sales people, are much more outward. And here's what I'm getting at. Let's think about the skills that make great leaders and great salespeople. They tend to care more about others than they do themselves. As a result, they end up asking more questions of others. They have a real curiosity to learn what people are thinking, and they care about how they feel. And if your brain and the words that you use to convey messages are more selfless and designed to help others, I find it's really hard to be unhappy while your purpose is to serve others. And it's that principle that I try to teach salespeople. When you're on the phone, you're not there to book the meeting. Certainly that's a finish line, but your brain is all wrong. You're wondering about, hey, at this point, this is how I'm going to overcome the objection. I must ask this question. And believe me, I won't say I'm guilty, but I certainly believe in sales process. But I say, stop worrying about yourself. Start worrying about the other people. Start worrying about the prospect. And by the way, when you do, they'll feel it, right? Selfless people tend to sell a lot of stuff because they care more for others. And man, if I can get salespeople to genuinely care more about helping those prospects and that sales leader to genuinely care about making their people happy, how can you not be successful? It's when we are so inward, man, where I'm just seeing people, what about me? Loathing in themselves, right? It's hard to find a Walmart or the guy out there, and when it's 32 degrees ringing the bell, he might be freezing his ass off with his Salvation Army, but he's helping others. And Mike, you've done this better than anybody. When I see your LinkedIn posts, tell them what you're doing. You're helping like a group of young kids. I saw a video on there with these kids that look like they didn't have a pot to piss in. And you're taking time out of your life to make these kids better. Tell us a little bit of how you're doing, because I do think it applies to, as a reminder to all of us, get out of our own brains and worry about others. What was that?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I started something, a nonprofit called Young Achievers Mastermind. And we all know the value from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, how important and valuable masterminds are. It's a collective force, energy, and ideas and insights from multiple people that can share and collectively become a greater force than they could ever do alone. And I decided to do this with at-risk kids, teens, 14 to 18 years old, that are at risk, defined as they were human trafficked, they're aging out of foster care, they had some incarceration issues, or they're living below the poverty line. There's a bunch of things that would call them at risk. And without a structured program to get them and keep them on the right path, their life is destined, very predictably, to be one of death, drugs, gangs, jail. And because it's been said that we are what we, sum total of our 5 closest friends, we are who we hang out with, but we are also what we hang out with, what we surround ourselves with, what's within our visual cue right here. So a quote that I love is, where you stare, you steer. So where you stare, you steer. What are you staring at? When I look at things in my office, I see my Lord and Savior. I see family members, picture of family members. I see my books. I see my weight. I see my water. Okay. So everything in front of me, there's so many external factors that get our attention and move us in that direction of unhappiness. So you have to be really deliberate about what you're looking at, because the outside force is pervasive. There's billions of dollars are spent to get your attention on things on social media and elsewhere. And typically it's not good. So unless you put things in your visual line of vision, then you're going to be taken off course. God places in my heart to help these kids, give them direction. And to your point, Brian, I couldn't agree more that I don't take any credit for this. God really placed it in my heart. I wish I could say I take credit for being happy when I'm serving others, especially those that are disadvantaged or marginalized. I give him all the credit because he really did make me that way. I love helping kids. I get my greatest joy. Trump was my largest client. I sold millions to Trump. I've made millions. And you know what? As all the things I've ever done in my life, nothing has made me happier than serving the needy and those that can't help themselves. And the only thing I could say to anyone listening to this is, if you do it, try it, and you'll see how it makes you feel. It's a very selfish way to be unselfish. And you do it because it makes you feel so good. It is the truth. But I think to your point about external, there's a lot of internal things that you got to do to be successful. And as far as being happy, and I bought the domain name servemanship instead of salesmanship. So the truth of the matter is that no one wants to be sold, but everyone wants to buy. You're not there to sell. You're there to help them solve a problem or achieve something that they want to achieve. So if you change, to your point, Brian, if you change your perspective when you get on a call, then I'm not here to sell them. I'm here to help them. Helpmanship, not salesmanship, that you're there to be of service. And, you know, they call it servant leadership. There's servant salesmanship. I mean, at the end of the day, you're there to, and I would also add to that, be creative. I know some people have trouble. Can I touch on the gatekeeper thing? Can I touch on that? Yeah. So I've had trouble with this in the copier sales. When I was out there knocking on doors, and everyone listening to this knows what that's like. And when I would ask the secretary, the gatekeeper, they say, what do you, I'd walk in. Yeah, I look like a salesman. I'd be wearing a suit and tie. And I said, yep, I'm here. I'm a sales guy. and they would kind of laugh a little bit. I said, how many copier salespeople have you seen today? And they would see a ton of, there was more copier salespeople calling on general offices than anything else. So whether you're calling on doctor's offices or hospitals or senior living facilities, whoever you're calling on, I got news for you. You're probably not the first or last person they're going to hear from. So I don't want you from now on to look at these secretaries as gatekeepers. That's a negative perspective. You're starting out in a negative way. I want you to shift your thinking. And instead of thinking of them as gatekeepers, think of them as innkeepers. What would happen if you treated them with the same kindness and humor and importance as a decision maker? What would happen? I call them innkeeper because they help get you in. As even though they're hired to keep you out, you can win them over. And I'm going to share a very, very brief but powerful story. I wanted to do a speech at the international conference, get this, for Office Depot. They usually had speakers like Colin Powell, like international famous people. I'm not a famous speaker. I'm like 5 levels beneath that, okay? But I wasn't going to stop me. It wasn't going to deter me. So the office, the corporate office for Office Depot is 10 minutes from where I live in Boca Raton, Florida. It's in Delray, okay? So I actually conjured up a creative plan, and you can do this. Do things different than your competitors to get in. If you brought a secretary a box of chocolates or flowers, or you gave 1 rose, every weekend, you don't know this, Brian and Scott, every weekend I go to Trader Joe's and I give a rose out to every woman in the parking lot. I buy 2 dozen roses. Every weekend, I give everyone a rose. You just say, have a nice day. God bless you. That's it. I expect nothing in return. What would happen if you went into an office and gave them a rose or a box of chocolates or something that made them laugh? So here's what I did. Very short story. I go in, I want to do this speech. And if you ever read the book, Selling the Veto, Veto is an acronym for very important top officer. Okay. So my sales training was always go to the top and let them funnel you down. You could also go down here and go up. I get both strategies work, but I always was trained go to top down. So I knew who the president was. I did my research. I knew about his family, and I wrote him a poem. I wrote the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. This is the truth. I get this documented. His name's Flores. No longer CEO, but he was when I did this. I wrote him a poem memorializing the acquisition he just made of Viking, and also that he likes to golf and has kids and a dog, and everything that I read on the internet, I incorporated in the poem. Now all I have to do is get to him to read this poem. How the heck do you do that? So I went to the office. This is where creativity comes in. It works. Believe me, it works. I brought a gift for the receptionist. No one gives a receptionist gifts. I brought the receptionist gifts, and I have one for the secretary of the president, and I also have one for the president. Okay, it's a month before Christmas, so they were Christmas gifts. And the end of the story is this: I said to the secretary, "I'm here, and I'm in a suit and a tie. I'm here to deliver this gift to." Now she already has a gift of mine. No one gave her gifts. Everyone else is getting gifts, not her. I gave her a gift, and I also said I have one for the president, CEO, Mr. Flores, and for his secretary. And she calls the secretary up on the phone. She says, and I hear her, there's a gentleman down here. He has a gift for you. And she says, I'll come down to pick it up. Now, I already planned that that's what was going to happen, right? She was going to not let me see the CEO. And I said, I have a 20-second poem that I wrote specifically for Mr. Flores that I'm here to recite for him when I give him the gift. And I have just 20 seconds of his time to recite this poem. Weird, a little bit, but I'm not going to get to see him any other way. And I hear the conversation now saying, yes, very nice. I said, did she ask how he was dressed? Like, did he look like a mad bomber? And I could hear just only one side of the conversation. And what I did was a physical action close. I reached for the phone and I said, may I speak to her, please? And I reached and I gently pulled out. I said, listen, I'm only going to take 20 seconds of his time. I have a Christmas gift for him. And I wrote a special poem, kind of like a singing telegram, but more important about his family and this and the business. And may I just have 20 seconds to read? I hung up the phone. They let me up. And I read the poem. And when I walk in his office, this is what he does. He puts his hands behind his head, leans back, probably with his eyes shut, thinking, why did I let this guy in? Why did I do this? And then halfway through the poem, he recognizes I did my homework. And he goes from his hands behind his head, leaning back with his eyes shut, and he leans forward, and he's there, and he's leaning in.
That's awesome.
And I got his total attention. And then he says at the very end, he said, wow, that was something. I said, Mr. Flores, may I tell you why I'm here, besides giving you these Christmas gifts? You have an international conference coming up. And if you would like your international sales force to get in to see CEOs on cold calls, like I just did with you, I'd like you to hire me as your speaker.
That's awesome. That's
I
a
never
great
got hired
story.
as a speaker, but I got to another level at the C level and never got it. But it was getting in to see a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company without guns or ammunition on a cold call by being creative. The lesson there is creative.
Weren't you fearful though? Why didn't fear stop you from doing that, Michael?
I was wearing Depends, so I always got myself covered. So you can never not be protected.
But listen, what I love
yeah,
about
I
that story
was
is
scared.
you end it, right? And you've told me that story before, and you end it by saying, guess what? I didn't get the deal. Who cares?
Boy, I got this.
You're telling the
baby.
story,
Yeah.
right? There's so much
And
story.
you know what?
Stories and failure. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, you didn't get. I didn't get that one, but I got others. It's all about and listen, as Gretzky says, you'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The answer is always no unless you ask. The fruit's always on the end of the limb. You'll never get to second with your foot stuck on first. They're all created because the bottom line is you got to take the shot. Otherwise, you'll never score. And to know that you can lay your head on the pillow saying, I took as many shots and big shots as I could in my life, man, that's the life you want to live. And I want everyone listening to this to live that life. And the only way you do that is by going for it and continue to go for it and continue to improve.
Amen.
I think that's just the best way to end that. That story's awesome. And I think Sully and I have known some characters in our industry that have done some crazy stuff over the years. And we've told those stories 10 times on this podcast. So I won't go through them all again. But I think if you don't take risk and you're not willing to do some silly stuff, Dr. Ben, it's boring.
It's boring.
Why be boring? Everybody's boring. Do some fun stuff. And you get to tell a story like what Michael just told us. And Michael, I'm sitting there on the edge of my seat listening to that story. I'm like, this guy's actually going to recite a poem to another grown man.
That's like crazy. And it all resonated because it was customized for him. And you won't believe this. I forgot one part of the story that at the very end, I said, did you ever hear of the book Selling DeVito? And this is his eyes grew really big. And he says, you won't believe it. He was our keynote speaker last year. And I did not know that. And that was fortuitous. That was a God thing. I did not know that.
That's
I
awesome.
didn't see it in my research. I should have, who the speaker was last year. But this is something I have. Can you see that foot?
Yeah.
I send this to people in a little box, just trying to get my foot in the door. You spend a few minutes talking to me.
I've got one of those here in my office, in my studio. Your little box
Do
with
you
the
really?
dollars in it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's where I keep all my little stupid things. I have your box. I got Dr. Ben. I've got my Jesus hat here. Look, I mean, so like you said, if it's in front of you, it's going to remind you to do stuff, you know?
That's it.
All right. Hey, where can
Out of
people
sight,
learn
out of
more?
mind.
So, hey, let's say they've got a big meeting coming up. I want your
Right.
juice. I want your energy. I want my people feeling amazing at this event. Where can they learn more about you?
Well, you can go to my website, Michael, MichaelAltshuler.com. You can go to YoungAchieversMastermind.org. That's a nonprofit to learn about what we're doing with the kids to help them. And also look up Michael Altshuler. I'm all over the internet. LinkedIn is a great place. You can read all about what I'm doing. And listen, at the end of the day, I think what we all do, we want to leave the world better than we found it. I don't do this for any other reason, as you said, Brian, that I want everyone who comes in contact with me. I got this from God, my mother, and my father, that you leave them better off than you found them. Leave them smiling, leave them joy-filled. Brian, you said in the beginning, I'm very grateful knowing that I'm doing what I'm put here to do, knowing that when you leave a call or my presence, that I did something to make you smile or laugh or improve your life in some way. And when you can live a life of service and know that you're making people, and life can be tough, we all get that you're leaving people better than you found them for a moment, for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year, or maybe for a lifetime if you're so blessed. Let's do that. We all have, I think, the responsibility on this earth to give that to others, that blessing.
I love that. That reminds me of do favors for them, remember them, and make them look good in front of those they care about the most. It's one of the best ways to give back. And Michael, that was awesome, man. I love your energy. What a fun conversation, and good luck to you, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. And also Michael at MichaelAltshuler.com. I did mention that same spelling. If you wanted to email me, you could do that. Brian, how did you do with that first shot with the Trump International Tournament, that tournament? I know we won't talk about that.
I blew it. Yeah, I blew it.
But how did you do on that?
And I got a good story.
How'd you do on the second shot?
Oh, I put it right on the green.
Okay, so therefore, everyone listening to this, take the second shot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy Michael Altshuler. You've been listening to The Cure. We'll see you next week. Scotty, maybe we'll do another show.
Yeah,
Or maybe
hopefully.
we won't. All right, we'll see you next time.
We're going to take the shot.
Take care.
See you guys.